Tractate Bava Kamma. Today we're going to study page 67. We start 66b, 5 lines from the bottom of the page. The two definitions we discussed yesterday. One, it's called shinui, meaning change of status. The other one is called yi'ush, meaning despair. In very short, if someone stole an article, stole an item, that item change its status. Simple example is someone stole an animal, and at the time being that the animal is by the thief, the animal can be fat or skinny, meaning the value of the animal change over the period of time. It applies also to other inanimate objects that can change their status. The question is how that affects the value of that item. Another phase, as we said, is the despair. When the owner gave up hope, what exactly the acquisition, the status of acquisition by the thief? Does that mean that the thief is 100% owner and responsible or not? And how you treat it afterward. Good example is someone take a piece of wood, expensive pieces of wood, okay, that not belong to him. And let's use name. Reuven took pieces of wood that belong to Shimon. And he built a house. In this country you see a lot, right? Houses that made out of wood. And then all of a sudden he made teshuvah. He now changed his way and he wants to return. The concern we have is if we ask the person to tear apart his house, right, and bring back the pieces of wood, people will think twice to do teshuvah, right? So there is a rabbinic decree, it's called takanat hashavim, that think twice before you do such a thing, right? Maybe it's better to give a monetary compensation or other way for people to do the teshuvah. So we learned yesterday a disputation between Rabbah and Rav Yosef. Rabbah has a view that the thief, let's say Reuven, stole something from Shimon. So Shimon gave up hope. He's total despair over that. So therefore, Reuven for sure, in a way, acquired it because, it's not legal, but it's his, right? By all means, imagine if Reuven stole a car from Shimon. So anything that happened to that car is Reuven's responsibility. In a way, he is the owner, right? So Rabbah have an issue with that. He said, Reuven acquired it from a rabbinic view or from the biblical text. But for sure, Rabbah hold that Reuven acquired it. So the Gemarrah asks a question, and just refresh what we studied yesterday about Orot, about the receiving of the ritual impurity. If you say that the thief took or and you received the ritual impurity, so meaning after the owner gave up hope, now it's basically a state of the thief, and then you see Yeush Koneh, that despair basically caused a person to have a state of acquirement. He acquired that part. So that's the way Rabbah understands. Rav Yosef said, even the owner, Shimon, gave up hope, he despaired, still Reuven is not the owner. That's Rav Yosef said. If you think about titles, let's say Reuven stole a car in modern days, so the title is still in the name of Shimon. Even Reuven now use the vehicle and do things with vehicle and responsible halachically for the vehicle, but the title by Rav Yosef said it's still by Shimon. So Rav Yosef said that there is a concept called koneh b'shinui shem, that you acquire by changing the title, meaning even the other party is despair, it's still the thief not acquire it. So the big point is, when you're changing the title or you're changing the status, it's not the same as it was. Meaning, you take something, I'm just giving you an example we used yesterday. You take something, pieces of wood, you build something out of it. Very hard to return it to the original pieces of wood that was. You take a flour, you make a bread, you cannot make it back flour, right? you take something, it's very hard to return to the original status. So what exactly happened when you're changing the title? So Vaharei Marish, again we have 5 lines from bottom of page 66b. Vaharei Marish, Marish is a large crossbeam. So Reuven stole a crossbeam and he built with that a large house, right? The Ika Shinui Hashem, because the name changed. Why the name changed? Is no longer Marish, is no longer a large beam. What is now? Now is a house. Now is something else, right? So they said, the Me'ikara Keshura Vehashta Tlala. Originally it was a piece of beam. Now it is what? It's a building, right? So it can be, for example, a roof of a building, right? Utnan, we learn in Tractate Gittin, page 55, that's one of the takanot, Rashi said, that the sages made, Mipnei Tikkun HaOlam, is the 5th chapter in Gittin we study. He said, Rabbi Yochanan ben Gudgeda testified, Ala Marish HaGazul Shebna'o Bevira. If someone stole a piece of beam and he built that beam, is a big mansion with that, Shenotel Damav, that he takes the compensation, the monetary compensation equivalent to that marish, to that piece of beam, mipnei takanat hashavim, because otherwise people who wants to repent, people who wants to do teshuvah, it will be extremely difficult for them to repent if they had to tear down their house in order to return the beam to its owner, right? So therefore, you have this idea. Biblically speaking, you have to return what you stole. You stole something, you stole bean, return bean. The sages came in and says, be practical. How you return a stolen bean and have expecting people to do teshuvah? People see that teshuvah is too much. I need to tear apart my entire house, my entire mansion, right? So therefore, people will not stand for that, what we said every morning, Ve'al tevi'eni lidei nisayon, Almighty, don't bring me to that test. If most of the people, Tama mipnei takanat hashavim, most of the people will not repent if that's the way. They feel that it's too overwhelming, it's too hard to do that, right? Page 67, halav hachi, if it's not their status of vessel, hadar be'enei, so it returned to the owner, it is the way it was. So what do you see here? So now you have a proof that shinui shem, it's not acquired. So the Ktsot HaChoshen, it's one of the greatest luminary rabbi in the past generation, asked a question. Why from the Ikar Adin, from the essence of the Jewish law, you have to return that item? It's basically shinui ma'aseh, the change, the status change. Right. Up to this point it was what? It was marish, just a piece of beam. Right. Now it's a roof, right. It's a floor, it's a right?
Part of a house.
So obviously, ganav kana b'shinui ma'aseh, the thief acquired by changing the status from being a beam to have now as a floor, as a roof. So they bring a Tosfot, the Ktsot HaChoshen bring a Tosfot in Tractate Sukkah. So he explained that shinui ma'aseh, changing the action and changing the status, it means you take a piece of beam and you cut it pieces and you make it like a table. So now it's a table. So the table by its essence, it's total different things.
You can't make it back into a beam. I mean, you cut it up.
Yes, he says, but
it's completely different now.
Look at the balcony. If you stole this beam from Home Depot and you make this balcony, hypothetically speaking, you can pull it out and put it back because it's still pieces of beam, the floor of the balcony. Table, however, Tosfot in Sukkah said, it's impossible to turn it back the way it was.
Agreed. I would make the same argument about most building materials because you cut things and things like that. Nothing's ever exactly the way
exactly the way
from the store. But now, is it just a payment in full, or is there any sort of monetary compensation in addition to?
Sometimes it is in addition, but here is the key point. If you go strictly by literal text of the Torah,
right, he has to return the beam. Right?
Just to return the beam.
I understand that.
But the reality
of it is not there. So the question, though, is there any further sort of punitive damages for
depending on the case, sometimes the way the Pnei Yehoshua said and others, sometimes you have to add compensations.
Yeah, right. You want to encourage them for teshuvah, but you don't want to
close the door.
Encourage them to do it again. I mean, you don't want to say, see how easy it is, do it again, right? So.
Absolutely. Amar Rav Yosef respond, Marish Shmo alav. So Rav Yosef tells us what? That when it's come to Marish, the crossbeam, its original name remains with it even after it built into the ceiling. Even there, it is still called crossbeam. You see in the Beit HaMikdash, the Tanya, we learn in the prophecy of Ezekiel, in the way that in Mitzvah Shem soon, the Beit HaMikdash, the third Beit HaMikdash will be rebuilt, Ezekiel 41, verse 26, that the prophet Ezekiel saw in the prophecy, he used the Tzalot HaBait VeHa'ubim, which means the part, good morning, the part of Beit HaMikdash, the walls, etc. What? The side. Right? So he said, Tzalot HaBait Elu HaMal Tetim, which means that's the beam, this cross beam of the temple. They are casings. V'ha'ubim elu hamrishot. That's the cross beam. So what do you see from this Braita? That even after the cross beams are built into the ceiling, they are still referred to as the cross beams. So the way that Rashi here in Bava Batra, page 6 said, that they did it in order to preserve those cross beams in a good condition, because there is always issue of mold and things like that in the building. So that's the way to preserve. So you see Anachinami, that you have a real Shinui Hashem, and therefore what you say, that the thief is basically acquire that. So another option, Rabbi Zeira Amar, שינוי החוזר לבריאתו בשינוי השם לא הווה שינוי. He said, Rabbi Zeira hold that when you have this change that is reversible, so you have in a case of the change his name, does not constitute a change that affects the acquisitions. Take the cross beam. You go to Home Depot, Reuven went to Home Depot and stole a bunch of cross beams. And he built with that a whatever it is, a roof for his house, or balcony for his house. So now, if you take it back, you take the pieces back, you bring it back to Home Depot, it's not the same. Do you guys agree? It's not the same. Or if we take the cross beams and build a table out of that, and now we take off the table and bring it back to the store, right? It's not the same, right? That's the whole idea of making something change, in the sense that in the rabbinic writing there is a concept that's called bederech hateva. You do something in a normal nature, even in these type of things. You take a cross beam, you make it a roof, you make it a floor, you make it a table, right? So basically in nature, the way it is, even you take the pieces back, it's not the same, right? So it reminds me the Khatam Sofer. The Khatam Sofer asked a question about the Purim miracle. He said, if you read the Megillah, it's not Shinui Hanes. What's the big miracles of Purim? They see that everything turned around. It was a decree to annihilate the Jewish people. So he explained, and he said that Kol Yaakov, when the Jewish people pray, they fast, they do all the things they need, So it changed, and everything changed for good, and everybody fasted for 3 days, so things turn around. But he explains that that's the beauty. Even when they did the mistake by נהנו מסעודתו של רשע, that they enjoy taking the party of Achashverosh when he display all the stolen item from Nebuchadnezzar, from the temple, right? It's already God set it up, a healing, רפואה למכה. So there are those who say that the shinui, the change, is already from Vayhi bimei Achashverosh. That it's in the very beginning, that the idea of making teshuvah and things turn around. ושינוי השם שאינו חוזר לבריאתו מהווה שינוי. When you are talking about changing, irreversible change of name, that constitutes a change which renders it different item than it was the original acquisition. So here they bring example of a pipe. You use a pipe to utilize water to the ritual bath. והרי צינור, take a pipe, דמעיקר הקציצתא, that originally it was a block of wood, והשתא צינורה, and now you change it and you make it as a pipe. ותניא, we learn, צינור שחקקו ולבסוף קבעו. If you take a pipe that one first hollow out from a block of wood and then attached to the ground, that basically make the mikveh invalid. פוסל את המקווה. Why? It's considering a kli, like a utensil, even is attached to the ground. Mikveh is a ritual bath. You have a collection of water that people duck themselves, or in some cases utensils, and you purify those from their ritual impurity. In order for the mikveh to be kasher, to be befitting, it has to constitute a amount of 40 se'ah. Not sure how you, but anyway, anyone knows what is a se'ah? I'm not sure. But anyway, this is a collection of raining water, or if you take a river, a spring water, that go toward a special tunnel underground. Mayim she'uvim, meaning the water that came out from the ground, and those water cannot be used for the mikveh. So if a person takes a piece of wood and make it like a little tunnel, and then he attach it to the ground in order to have the raining water or water of the river as a mikveh, so that water is called mayim she'uvim, and that make the mikveh invalid. So the Gemarrah in Masechet Mikveot, the Mishnah, etc., they talk about Beit Kibul, what exactly befitting to have it as a mikveh. But anyway, he said kva'o ulvasof chakako. But if he first attached it to the ground while it was still block of wood and then hollow it out, eino posel et hamikveh. It does not disqualify a mikveh if it is used to channel water into the mikveh. For such a pipe is considered part of the ground rather than a vessel. Ve'i amart shinui Hashem miltahi. And if you say that the change of name is a legally significant matter, afilu kva'o ulfasof l'chakako nami lipasel, then even if he first attached it to the ground and then hollow it out, the mikveh should also be disqualified. So the Rabbi Akiva Iger in the Pnei Yoshua said that based on the Gemara in Tractate Sukkah, page 30b, you see there a disputation between Rashi and Tosfot if shinui mo'il or not mo'il, So here the Gemara said, Shani she'iva demi derabanan hi. When we talk about disqualification of drawing water, that it's total different because it's a rabbinic law. So even you say that the drawing water is rabbinic law, but biblically speaking, you can go to any place of collection of water, even a drawing water. That's the Rambam, Ilchot Mikveot, chapter 4. So even that pieces of wood that change, and it's called pipe, but the sages will not be stringent to disqualify the mikveh. I'm just reading the Rashi here. Rashi said, שאיבה מה שמקווה נפסל בשלושה לוגין מים שאובים מדרבנן היא. The disqualification of drawing water, it's a rabbinic. Not everyone agrees with Rashi. The Imrei Emet, the great Gemarrah Rebbe, said that the Gemara tells us in Tractate Shabbat about Be'era shel Miriam, the well of the biblical prophetess Miriam. So they said that any ma'ayan, any spring water, it's from the ground. So the people use that water. But the moment Miriam is gone, they have no water. But they said that by the prayer, people pray hard, things turn around, and as we all know the story, with the hitting the rocks, instead of speaking to the rock, they have the water. So this is the idea. The Imrei Emet said that we may think that the Maim Shuvim, the drawing water, it's come from the power of a person, because they daven, they pray, they change the status. So he said that's we learn that it's not Maim Shuvim. The truth is the Hasidic Rebbe, the Shiniver Rebbe, used to say that we have to be very careful when we build a mikveh to be the highest level. It's a matter of fact that Chabad are very strict of building the mikveh. We'll talk about it several times, one at the top of the others versus one attached to the other at the same level. But the key is, the Shiniver Rebbe said that it is a neshamot, is the souls that refuse to come to this world because the mikveh, it's not mikveh that's real kosher, that's real purified. Therefore, he said that we have to be very extraordinary careful when we build it to be properly built. The late Rabbi Moshe Feinstein, Zecher Tzadik Livracha, was asked a question: how about you take a truck, you bring a boxes of ice, right, and you make it as a mikveh? Is that okay or not? Right? You take a large tab, you import in a boxes of ice, right, by a truck, right? And so Moshe Feinstein said, no, you cannot use it because it's called nishtanat tsurato. You change the status. It's not a spring water. It's not ma'ayan. It's already frozen pieces of boxes of water, and therefore you cannot use it. It's a matter of fact that the Chibini Rav and Rav Braish have a discussion over to make ice on Shabbat, and they say that it's either boneh or nolad. Anyway, so it's awesome. Yache, so the Gemara said, if the sages are not so strict with something that attached to the ground, afilu the reisha nami, so maybe even the first part, the mikveh will not be disqualified for that pipe. So hatam ika torat kli alav betalush, hacha en torat kli alav betalush. So the first one has the torat kli have the essence of a vessel when it's attached, and here did not have the status of vessel while it was unattached. So the Bnei Sachar brings the explanation of the Torah portion that dealing with mikveh. Mikveh, we say that is a 40 se'ah. Why is a 40 se'ah? Because if you have a person, is a 3 amot, right? What is it? 3 cubits. That's the person, the highest level of a person. So if he needs to toivel, so he bring Yerushalmi that said that basically it has to be 960 lugin. That's basically batel bria. It changed the status of that creature. So it means spiritually, mystically, when a person toivel, duck himself in the mikveh, it changes status to be a newly born person. So therefore, he's mevatel bria v'yotze bria. He's abrogated his previous status and became a new status. So he explained based on that, the Torah said that when it comes to illegitimate child, mamzer ador asiri lo yavo bikal Hashem. So David, you're going to like it. What does that mean, ador asiri? Why up to 10 generations mamzer cannot come? So he said like that. When you think about it, son and father, so you have a half of his father. Grandson have a quarter. Great-grandson have 1/8. So if you go up to the 10th generation, you exceeded the 960. So if you exceeded 960, so you may think that it's a new bria, it's a new creature. So the Torah Mechadesh, the Torah innovatively said that even if you exceeded the 10th generation, it still cannot be accepted among the congregation. Anyway, Meitivei. So now we go back to the view of Rav Yosef, who said that the Yeush, the despair, is not acquired. Meitivei. Haganav, the thief, V'hagazlan, and the robber, V'ha'anas, and one who's a expropriation, which means someone who basically forcefully took something, Reuven forcefully took something against Shimon's will without his consent. So he, since Shimon refused to give it to him, is basically takes something that not belongs to him. But by the same token, he paid Shimon the value of that item. Right? So that's called anas. Hekdeshan hekdesh u'trumatan truma. Whatever they sanctified is sanctified, and whatever they contributed. So, for example, if they stolen a produce that is not tightened yet, and they bring a truma for that, so that tighten is ineffective, but that truma, people who are not the Kohanim cannot partake of that. U'ma'asrotav ma'aser. So it means, you see, we said that the person cannot contribute to something that doesn't belong to him. So it means that you have to speak about honor that is so despair that gave up hope. And therefore, the moment the honor despair, you have the notion that the robber or the thief acquired that item. So the Gemara rejected that and said, Amrei hatam ika shinui Hashem. So the Pnei Yoshua explains that how you bring this as offering, it's a mitzvah haba'a ba'avera, it's a mitzvah that comes toward a sin, but the mi'ikar tivla v'hashta truma. So you cannot have the Rashba said truma without the consent of the owner. So the Ksod HaChoshen explains the same way you acquire a building that it's not yours, and you do it forcefully against the owners. So he explained that there is a concept that's called agav kinyan. You don't do it directly, you do it in the clandestine way, indirectly. So he said, Hekdesh me'ikar hachulin, ve'ashta hekdesh. So it means, again, the owner gave up hope, it's total despair, and you can say in that notion that under this circumstance, you may have some manner of ownership by, again, act of desperation of the owner. Amar Rav Chizda, so now Gemarrah go back to the Amoraic statement regarding physical change. Amar Rav Chizda, Amar Rabbi Yonatan, minayin leshinui shu koneh. How do you know that the physical change that affect acquisition? Shenemar, because the Torah said in Vayikra chapter 5, ve'eshiv et hagzeila, that the thief need to return the stolen article. Ma Talmud lomar asher gazal. Why you need to add the word what he stole? Obviously, he need to return the stolen item. It means that he needs to return what he stole. So im ke'ein shegazal yachazir b'im lav damim be'alma ba'i shalumi. If it was a Rolex watch, so you have to return the watch. If somehow it's impossible, So you have to bring a monetary compensation that toward the item that was stolen. Which means, in that sense, the thief is now acquire the stolen item, and he paid the monetary value of that stolen item that was at the time of the stolen. Not at this very moment, but at that time, right? So the Gemara asks, Hay asher gazal miba'ei lema'ute gezel aviv. So it means that if the father stole, and he took a false oath, and he passed away, and the son paying what is stolen after the father is gone, she'ino mosif chomesh al gezel aviv, that the son does not add a fifth when paying, that's the fine, when his father stole. So, in general, a person needs to do it. But here, you cannot impose it on the son. So he said, the Gemara responds, אם כן יכתוב רחמנא והשיב את גזילו, אשר גזל למה לי למכתב, שמע מינא תרתי, that is not need to pay 1/5 for a stolen item by his father, and also that he doesn't need to bring back exactly what is stolen, but he can bring a compensation that is match כאין שגזל. ואיכא דאמרי is another option. אמר רב חיסדא אמר רבי יונתן, מניין לשינוי שאינו קונה, how you derive the respect to a physical change that is not effect acquisition, the same pasuk שנאמר והשיב את הגזלה, that you need to return the stolen article, mikol makom, in any case, even that it changes status. So as we said, the Ravid explains that basically the reality is that that's the takanat shavim, as we said earlier, that if you, for example, for those who come later, right, if you force the person to take out his entire roof, his entire house, his entire floor that was stolen, people will not do teshuvah. People will feel that it's too overwhelming, right? You ask me now to take out all my roof and balcony and give it back to Home Depot, I'm not going to do that. That's too much for me. So the rabbis came in and said, okay, we're not going strictly by the Torah law, but you have to return the exact item, because most of the people will not do that. We can be lenient and ask you to give the compensation, the monetary compensation, that is value, right? So they said, "Va'aktiv asher gazal," but the Torah said clearly what is stolen. So ahu mibayle al gzelo shelo mosif chomesh, ve'en mosif chomesh al gezel aviv. If the son stole, we understand that you put a fine and need to pay in addition to what is stolen, a fine of 1/5. But since he is not the one who did it, but his father did it, so therefore we not impose, after the father is no longer among the living, upon the son, in addition to pay what is worth, the fine of 1/5. So now we go back to the Amoraic disputation in regards to despair. If that matter of stolen item acquired by the thief, Amar Ula minayin leyeush she'eino koneh, how do you know that despair, it does not affect acquisition? Shene'emar, when the prophet Malachi, he rebuked his generation for bringing a blemished animals as an offering. So they said in the first chapter of Malachi, verse 13, "V'havetem gazul, ve'et hapiseach, ve'et hacholeh." You're bringing an offering for a stolen, the lame, the sick. So it's like, in a way, insult to God, right? What do? So why you bring all of this list? Gazul dumya de piseach. If you have a stolen item, is analogous to the lame one, and that teaches that ma piseach de leit le takanta klal. So the moment it's a lame one, you don't have any remedy whatsoever because it's blemish. So it's permanently unfit to make it as a sacrificial offering. That's Rashi tells us in Tractate Sukkah, page 30. Page 67b, Av gazul deleit letakanta. So the same way is the stolen one, that is one that has no remedy. Lo shna lifnei yeshush, lo shna leachar yeshush. It's no difference if it was before the owner despair or after. It's not fitting for offering the altar. Rav amar me'acha, קורבנו, ולא הגזול, אימת. אימה לפני ייאוש פשיטה. If it's before it's despair, it's obvious. You cannot bring the animal as offering. Because the thief cannot sanctify an animal before the owner gave up hope, before the owner despair. למה לקרא אלא לאו לאחר ייאוש? You have to say that it means after the owner despair. And even though the Torah said that this offering is not fitting, שממינה ייאוש לא כאן יש מאמינה. So you derive from that despair is not effect acquisition. When you repeat twice שממינה, it means that that's total refutation, total. והרב ההוא דאמר דגזל קורבן דחברי. After it was sanctified, someone stole an offering from another one. it's two ways to understand. Hadarbe, Rava changed his mind, he backed out. Rav Papa Amra. One of these is Rav Papa said, and by mistake is in the main on the Rabbah. So then the Mishnah said, the payment of 4 and 5th fold payment apply only to an ox or sheep alone. So they said, why? Neilaf shor shor mishabat. You learn a verbal analogy, juxtaposition from Shabbat. So the same here is animal and bird, that the same as law as respect to them, which means that the ox and sheep specified in the pasuk. Amarav amarka shor vese shne pam. Torah said it twice. Shor vese ein midachrina lo. So only specifically shor and se, not other things. So just a side note, the Rambam in the guide for the perplexed in Moreh Nevuchim. So we aren't dealing much with Ta'amei mitzvot, explanation of the mitzvot, but the Rambam tried to explain to us. So the Rambam said why specifically in Shor and Se. So he explained that because it's very hard to garden, so therefore they put a knas. So a person will think twice before he steal it. So one of the Hasidim of Rozhin asked the Rebbe, the Rambam said in one place in the Guide for the Perplexed that Aristo received a level of understanding more than Moshe Rabbeinu. You know, they put the Rambam under the cherem for that. So the Rozhiner Rebbe explained it beautifully. He says, you guys don't understand. What the Rambam's meant is, you imagine a big king that they have a huge, gorgeous palace with flowers, with beautiful doors, and a band that play music and everything else. So they have people who are not so smart. They are so impressed with the music, they're standing outside of the palace all their life and watching the music. You have people who are a little smarter and they go deeper and they look at the flowers and look at the doors. But you have very wise people that ignore all of that and go straight and talk to the king and communicate directly to the king and ask for the need. That's the real difference. When you talk about other chokhmot like Aristo and others that the Rambam said, so he deepened himself with philosophy, with understanding. It's all the external part of the king's palace. Moshe Rabbeinu is the one who understands the truth of the blueprint of life, which is our Holy Torah, and he went directly to the King of the universe and learned and transmit the Torah to us. So that's what the Rambam meant. The Rozhiner Rebbe said, Amri, hey miyater il, mashor besed seifa miyater, running out of time, right? Tenichtov rachmana kignov shor ose udvacho, או מחרו 5 בקר ישלם תחתיו 4 בסון, תחתיו יקרב רחמנה אחי, אבא מינה בה ישלומי, תשאל לכל אחד ואחד. So regardless if he stole ox or lamb, he needs to bring 4 for the bakar, and 4 for the צאן. וחיתם הכתיב תחתיו, 1 תחתיו מיתר, ראו מבעל לדרשה אחרינה. נתן יכול גנב שור שווה מנה. ישלם תחתיו נגידים, תלמוד לומר, תחתיו. So that's the reason we see it twice. אלא שור ועשה the רישא מיותר. So it's a superfluous, the written twice. דנכתוב רחמנה כי גנוב איש ודבחו מחרו 5 בקר ישלם תחת השור ו4 צאן תחת עשה. יקרתב רחמנה אחיה במינה עד הגניב תרי וטבח לו. ודבחו כתיב לחד. ואימא עד הגניב תרבה ומזמן לו. או מחרו כתיב לחד. ואימא הווה אמינא עד הגניב תרי וטבח חד ומזבן חד. So the Gemara said, או מחרו כתיב. והקתי, and still you can ask a question, Hava mina de ganiv travayu. So you might have said that he is not liable until he steals both of them and slaughter one and leave one over. ותבח חד ומשאר אחד, או מזבן חד ומשאר אחד, or he sells one and leave one over. אלא השור לסיפא וסדר רישא מייתר, דנכתוב רחמנה כגנוב אישור וטבחו או מחרו 5 בקר ישראלים תחתיו 4 צאן תחת עשה, שדגמרא said שור דסיפא וסדר רישא. למה לי? So why do I need the word ox is written later part of the pasuk and the word sheep written the first part of the pasuk? Shma mina, you derive from that it's not superfluous. Shor v'se'ein. So ox or sheep, yes, they are subject to the 4 and 5-fold penalties. Mide achrina lo, but anything else is not subject to those penalties. So Tosfot ask why it's written in the se 2 times. And not in the Shabbat. So they said that Shov is written twice. It means that specifically by them, but the other thing not is only 2-fold kefel, tashlumei kefel. So I'd like to conclude with Kedushat Levi. Rabbi Levi Yitzchak ben Sarasha she'ezchuto yagen aleinu. It was a slaughter, a shochet, in the city of Lemberg. So the Misnagdim, the Litvaks, right, the holy Litvaks, they oppose him. So they start bad-mouthing him, that his shechita is not good, and they try to avoid him from doing the shechita. So the Kedushat Levi checked him, and he said that he's fine. So he said that the Malach Michael is helping him to do the shechita. So when the Litvak Rabbi Yeshuot Yaakov heard that, so he said, oh, if the Rebbe said that the angel helped him, so it's not kosher, because in order to do the shechita, you need to do it by yourself. So the Rabbi Levi Yitzchak said, you know, we said at the end of the days the Mashiach will come, and we eat from the besaro shel Leviathan, right, the Leviathan, and it will be a shorabar. So shorabar is lav bar zvichau. It's not the animal that you can slaughter, but he said whoever going to eat from that shorabar is going to eat now from that shochet. So in short, what the Kedushat Levi tried to say, that you can trust him, that fellow, for the level of his Hasidic shechita.
Shula